Welcome to the Grief Ladies, the practical guide to what comes next. I'm Kelly Daugherty.
And I'm Karyn Arnold, and we are two grief professionals with over 50 years of combined experience. We're here to validate, educate, and give you tangible tools you can actually use.
Each episode motivates you to take action and reminds you it's okay to want to feel better. This is the Grief Ladies, a guide to what comes next. Hello, and welcome back to our podcast. We are really excited today. We have another Kelly here, so it's another K. We're here with Kelly Myerson. She is a holistic leadership and communication specialist, and she's here to talk about G in our grief framework, which is grounding. And we're going to dive into some practical strategies for holistic approaches to sleep. So we're really excited about this. This is a topic that comes up all the time with our clients. We know grief really impacts our sleep. So just so excited to have you here today, Kelly. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I think this is such a valuable topic for people.
Yeah, so I'm just going to read Kelly's bio so everybody knows a little bit more about her. But Kelly helps soul-driven women amplify their voices, reclaim their time, and lead from their deepest truth. Blending over 2 decades in pediatric occupational therapy with a master's in strategic communication and a lifelong love of science and spirituality, Kelly guides clients to align their energy, purpose, and voice so that they can create impact without burning out. She's also the host of the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast.
Yay.
Yeah.
That's a good bio. I always love hearing all that. Woo. That's a mouthful.
And she's also a Brave Healer author. And that's how, for Kelly, you may not know, that's how Karyn and I actually met, was we were co-authors in the Grief Experience book. So it's nice to have another Brave Healer author with us today as well.
Yes. Shout out to Laura DeFranco.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Bringing us all together.
That's for sure. Well, Kelly, we want to, go ahead and dive right in. And as Kelly was saying, that this is such a big topic. And when we talk to people who are grieving, they talk about being exhausted. And a lot of that can be mental exhaustion and just the sort of running script of what's going on in our heads and the processing that's happening. And so there's a lot of that, I think, that's contributing at times to people's challenges in sleep, but also change in habits and patterns, routine. I mean, so many different things that can be leading, to some of these sleep issues. I know people I talk to, there are some that are really struggling with sleep to be able to fall asleep or stay asleep. But then there's others at times that are feeling like they're sleeping too much or all they want to do is sleep. So is that something that we can work with? Like, is there a way to kind of work with a person's sleep patterns at this time to make it as beneficial to them as possible?
Absolutely. And I think the first thing to say is that when we're going through a grieving process, it sort of interrupts all different parts of our lives. So it's no wonder that we're either not able to fall asleep, having a difficult time staying asleep, or really craving more sleep than we typically would and concerned that we're sleeping too much. So I think the first thing is to give yourself permission to accept wherever you are right now with sleep and that it's okay and it will get better. And I think the first thing to say about challenges with sleep is that when you're going through so much emotional strife, it's hard to let your body relax. And we get so stuck in those mental loops. And even though we're exhausted, we're just still mentally spinning. And that mental spinning and the state that it puts our body in makes relaxation very difficult. So that ability to wind down and be tired and ready to fall asleep, we're sort of tired but wired. And I think that's probably a very typical experience. I know for me, anytime I'm going through anything emotional, I hit that wired but tired state.
Yeah. That's such a good way to put it, actually. The idea, because that's the thing that's so frustrating. Everybody's so tired and probably eager for sleep in some ways. I think it's, for some people, the days can feel very long as they're trying to, adjust to very big life change. And so there's this hope that they can, go to sleep and just get a break for a little while. And then it's like, it feels like it gets quiet, it gets dark. The activity of the day, the distractions of the day have all sort of disappeared, and it's just you and your thoughts. And it's very difficult to be managing that, I think. So, what is some of that you hear in terms of the challenges people have in sleep when they are grieving?
Definitely all of those things. I think the coming on of the end of the day, like you said, it gets darker, it gets quieter. When you're going through a period of grief, it's in those moments that your mind can get more busy.
Mm.
And so I know I used to be so anxious when it started to get dark at bedtime when my son was little because he didn't sleep well. And like sleep was stressful. It was waking up all times of the night. So I would get a little bit of anxiety as soon as it started to get dark. So I've been through that pattern of feeling like the dark, the quiet, the contemplative time becomes time to think about all the things that have gone wrong and to spin out. So, what I know works really well for people when that happens is finding the ways that you can quiet your mind and down regulate your nervous system. I know we talk a lot about nervous system these days, but in that anxious state, our brainwave activity is high beta, which is stress, defense. You're ready for fight or flight, that primitive part of our brain that kicks in. So, what we want to do is we want to figure out, how am I taking my body from that state of high beta all the way down to delta sleep? And when you think about that, you've got to come down through beta, which is just high energy, active learning and living. Um, Alpha, which is like our very calm, quiet, but contemplative state like we're in right now. Theta, which comes just before delta, which is that really peaceful, dreamy kind of feeling when you start to feel sleepiness come on. And it just feels so good to just give in to that and fall asleep, and then going into our delta sleep. So being able to, one, acknowledge that your nervous system, because of what's happening, because of the stress and anxiety and sadness and all the emotions that are going on, is putting your nervous system in a very high state of arousal. And at a high state of arousal, we're not ready for sleep. So we're going to give ourselves permission before we ever put ourselves in our bedroom and in our bed and our head on our pillow to help our bodies come down through those stages and down regulate to a more calm state. So for some people, that might be allowing themselves to express their grief, whether it's in written form, to talk to someone, to process through and have a moment to cry freely. I don't know about other people, but when my mom passed away, I felt, as the oldest daughter and the person kind of coordinating many things, like I had to stay so calm and centered all day and available to everybody else. And that when it came to the end of the day and when there was that quiet time, that's when I would find I would fall apart, because it was like an okay time. So maybe giving yourself permission to fall apart a little bit, because sometimes we need to just follow that cycle and stop fighting the expression of our sadness. It may also be a good time to move our bodies in a way that feels good to us, whether that's stretching, or doing some yoga, or taking a walk after dinner, so that our body gets in motion and some of the stuck emotions in our bodies can get out. And it may also be choosing something that really is calming and soothing for us that we can put our energy into before trying to fall asleep. So that could be reading something that takes us away from what's going on. So a fantasy book, or a book that just gives us a beautiful, hope-filled story, or having a cup of tea and lighting a candle and creating a sensory space where we're really soothing ourselves. I think one of the things that people often forget or maybe don't know is that sometimes we can't jump right into self-care. Sometimes we need to start with self-soothing. And so entering a bedtime routine from the place of self-soothing over self-care, washing my face, brushing my teeth, taking a shower, those can also be self-soothing, but they're very critical self-care. Starting with something that's soothing to us, that almost seems a little special for the moment. Like, would we not necessarily light a candle and brew a cup of tea and sit with a blanket and a book or, write in a journal at that time? So we can give ourselves the chance to just be and relax and start to downgrade our nervous system and then get into the self-care pieces and do our routine or ritual for bedtime.
If you've connected with our grief framework on the podcast, you'll find even more support inside our private, free Facebook community. Each week, we'll walk through grounding, rebuilding, interacting, evolving, and finding with prompts and practical tools you can use right away. It's a place to connect with others who are on their own trail through grief. Search the Grief Ladies community on Facebook and join us. I think that's so great because, Kelly, what it's reminding me of, and we talk about this, I do a running program for grieving women, and we have a grief group, and then we train for a 5K race. And we always say, no one goes to sleep well the night of healing strides. Even though like it's been an amazing night and everybody leaves feeling good, it's like we've released all these endorphins. We feel good. I get home, it's like past my bedtime already by the time I get up because I go to bed early. But it's like the healing strides nights, I never can fall asleep forever. And I think what I'm missing, Kelly, from what I hear you saying is like, I take a shower and I get into bed. And I haven't allowed myself to kind of like get that nervous system to just relax and calm down a little bit. And no wonder why I can't fall asleep.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, and exercise, like those high level exercises, let alone like the camaraderie and everything, puts you in that beta state. So you're like high energy, which is perfect for the beginning of our day or the middle of our day, but not so great at the end of the day. So that is one of the things that I teach people. You don't necessarily want to exercise close into bedtime because maybe 4 hours before is a max. And especially during a really difficult time for you, you might want to even back it a little bit more. Maybe you want to hit some exercise or movement in the beginning of your day. Give yourself a little bit more energy to get through the day and stick to some really calming activities. I'm like you, like I love going to bed early, but I definitely need enough of a lead time for my nervous system to calm down, like detaching from the day and busyness. So I try, after 6 p.m., whatever I'm doing is just going to kind of be at a very calm level so that I don't have so much work to do to calm my system down.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm curious. Okay, so we've calmed ourselves down. We've done what we need to do, brushed our teeth and everything, and now we're in bed and we still can't fall asleep.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What does that look like? What are your
That looks
suggestions?
familiar. I've been there. I think that's when you want to try to employ some of the strategies that are out there. And you can certainly, if you go on Apple Podcasts and you do a search for sleep stories, or podcasts that are literally you just press play and they're supposed to help you fall asleep, that's a great way to go. Guided meditations that kind of give your mind something to do. So if you're a busy brain, that's what I call people like me who tend to have a lot more activity and thinking up there. Or if you've become a busy brain during your grief journey, then you need to give your brain something to do. You can't just put yourself in a quiet state and hope that it just gets quiet up there. That hasn't been my experience. So you can do some breathing techniques where you're counting, something like breathing in for 4, hold for 6, out for 8, or any variation of that. Really, the whole thing that's doing is your brain has to keep track of how long you're inhaling and exhaling. So you can't both do that and think about whatever else is on your mind. You can do some meditating to fall asleep, doing like counting backwards by threes from 300, those kinds of things, or even like progressive relaxation, like starting at your feet or starting at your head, where you're letting yourself do some thinking, but the thinking is enhancing relaxation for you. Listening to a sleep story is a great way to do it, because you're going to listen to the story and get engaged in that versus thinking about what's on your mind. So sometimes complete quiet does not necessarily offer soothing vibes for us to feel ready to fall asleep.
Yeah.
So what would you say to the people that sleep with the TV on?
Don't do it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Controversial topic. Yeah, I would say to people who sleep with the TV on, the auditory is not particularly a concern, especially if it becomes a bit monotonous in the background. The problem comes in with the light that's emitted from the screen and from anything else in our room, really. We want to have as much complete dark because our brain is wired to respond to light as the signal to start to wake up. So it's what becomes an issue in the evening hours when we have too many lights on or too much screen time. It's really setting the wrong trigger for us that it's time to be awake instead of signaling to the body that it's time to fall asleep. So that's what makes having a television in the bedroom problematic. And it also does like a little bit of flashing between screens, and sometimes it's visible and sometimes it's not, but it is creating that intensity. And even with your eyes closed, it's hitting your nervous system. So I would say if you're somebody who finds listening to TV to help you fall asleep, then sleep stories would be a great way to go. And I mean, there's all the way from high tech to low tech ways that you can do that. But the very most simple way is to just find something on your phone, have your phone facing down and just have it play. Because that would give you the same experience. It's the listening to a story or to something going on in that monotony that helps us sort of self-soothe a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, there's times I've had like my laptop open and I'll play something on YouTube, but I can turn the screen all the way down. Because if you've ever, so I really don't like the sun or the heat. So if I take my walks, I sometimes take them like later when it's starting to get dark. And if you ever walk through your neighborhood and your neighbors are watching their TV, you can see the flashing. And you're not aware of it or conscious of it when you're watching it yourself. But you're absolutely right. There is like a flashing that's happening very quickly and it's probably pretty disruptive. So it's interesting, to think about that. I know for a lot of people that I work with, they get a little frustrated when we talk about sleep because of all the things, we're talking about choices and what are the things that you get to control. They're kind of like, I'm trying to sleep well. I want to, it kind of feels like I always describe it as like, winning the lottery or like hitting the jackpot. Either like I got lucky or I didn't get lucky. And so I'm trying to, through the times I'm talking to people about them, empower them a little bit better to understand that it's maybe a little bit more in our control than we think. And some of that I think has to do with the repetition of it. Cause I think that's the other thing. Sometimes a person feels like, well, I tried that. Yeah, I did one of those sleep stories. Yes, so what else would you say about that to try and encourage people to kind of keep going and to really put themselves in the position to be able to try this for themselves?
Yeah, I think number one, the world is not currently designed for people to sleep well.
Mm.
So most of us are going to struggle in some way or another, because trying to operate in the 21st century with the world as it is does not set us up to succeed if we just kind of follow along with what's going on. We're plugged in, we have screens in every room in our house. So you have to be a bit rebellious to really sleep well these days. biologically, how we're designed is not, in correlation with the way the world is now. Biologically, we're designed to rise and go to sleep with the cycles of the way the sun and the moon move, right? But that's not how we're operating. We have street lights and lights in our home and meetings on the computer. And so it's no wonder we all struggle. But there are some basic things that help us to do better. And I think the second most important thing, besides realizing that, yeah, we're all in this together, the world is not designed for sleep, is that it can be as simple as recognizing where you could be making some different choices throughout the day that are going to support your sleep and just managing your nervous system in general. So I like to look at things from the framework of 3 interlocking circles. And those things are your environment. So in this case, your sleep environment, your habits, so those things you do throughout the day, and then your mindset. So when we're talking about grief and having a busy brain or oversleeping, those are all in that mindset circle. And there are things that we can do, like we talked about, the soothing techniques, the rituals, the time to wind down. When we're talking about environment, we can set up our bedroom to be darker, more cool, have less flickering lights in it, and try to create a sanctuary where it is so much easier for us to sleep. But the third circle there is habits, and that is for sure where people struggle and they feel like, I can't do this and I can't do that. So I think there's a few critical habits that will either help you or hinder you. So one of those is for sure caffeine, because of the way that it behaves in your body and the way it delays the natural progression towards sleepiness in the day. So it gets in there in the receptors for sleepiness and it makes you feel more alert. But then when it wears off, when you have caffeine at 3 o'clock and all of a sudden at 5 o'clock you're exhausted, but you're wired, and then it's interrupting you as time goes on. So caffeine tends to stay in your system for a long time, and everybody is a little bit different. I know for me, it's there 12 hours later. So if it's there 12 hours later and I want to go to bed at, let's say, 9 p.m., then I really have to be careful about any caffeine I have after 9 a.m. in the morning. So that's one big thing, to look at your day and see, am I having caffeine too late in the day? And is that interrupting my sleep? So that's one of the biggies. The other is having your cell phone in your bedroom near your bed. So it's so much easier if your cell phone is right on your nightstand and you wake up and you can't sleep to pick up your phone and scroll. But again, that light that it emits is going to wake up your system more than help your system to fall asleep. So it could be a disruptor for you. So those are 2 huge habits that can really make a difference. The others are the things we consume before bedtime. And we could mean consumption like, are you watching a Stephen King movie on TV? And so you're like in a state of fight or flight because you watched a really scary movie. Or are you having, food or drinks that are either making you feel more alert, disrupting your alertness, which is something like having a glass of wine. People say it makes you feel sleepy. It does, but it's kind of a false sleepy, because when it wears off, you're still alert. And that's why some people maybe will fall asleep quickly having a glass of wine, but then you wake up in the middle of the night. That could be a middle of the night disruptor because it disrupts the natural progression of neurochemistry in your body. So those are some big ones. Then there's, if you're somebody who drinks too much up to bedtime, you might be waking up because you need to pee. And so you may have to, right, exactly, which is good. You're hydrated, but sometimes you have to just limit and figure out what is the amount I can have prior to bedtime without disrupting my sleep cycles. So those are just a couple things to think about. And I tell people, listen, you don't have to go into this with, I'm going to fix everything in one go unless you're really ready for that. And if you are, go for it. It might be better to just pick one thing and make one small change that is manageable. Go for the low-hanging fruit. Don't go for the thing that's going to require the most change for you. Or go for the thing that is the biggest challenge, eat the frog, right? But just know that if you're going for the most challenging thing, the length of time it's probably going to take to make that change sustainable is going to be longer. So let's hit the true science of how we uptake habits. Everybody hears 21 days to a new habit, but that's not what the research shows. The research shows it's an average of 66. That's the scientific study that was done back in, I think, 2009.
And up to like what, 253 days, isn't it?
Right, exactly. So, we've got our bell curve for those who are familiar with the bell curve, and you're going to fall somewhere on there. And there are things you can do that will either, increase the likelihood of success or not. So when you tell people, it makes it more successful. When you set up your environment, that makes you more successful. So pick one habit to change that's going to make a big difference. Maybe the habit that you need is a wind down routine. I say if you could also pick something that brings you joy and doesn't make you feel like you're being punished, that probably will lead to more success. If like the idea of going to bed a couple hours earlier feels like somebody is telling them that they're being naughty and they shouldn't do it, I don't know about you, but I still have an issue with authority. So even if it's me telling me this is what you have to do, I tend to be like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting because I think a lot of times people that are grieving are feeling deprived, and all the more reason why they want to let themselves have sweets, before they go to bed, or that glass of wine. But, recognizing that sometimes when we think about like, well, I deserve this. I'm going through a hard time. I'm going to give myself a break. But a lot of these habits and things during the day, or, later into the day, are making it very difficult to sleep. And in a way, we are punishing ourselves, with some of the things that we think we're doing to sort of treat ourselves. So we have to think about what is it that we really deserve, which is actually a good night's sleep. It's important.
Yeah.
And so, Kelly, my gastro has told me, because I have some stomach stuff, that I really shouldn't eat 3 hours before bed. So would you agree that that's kind of a general rule of thumb?
I will tell you, as somebody who has struggled with heartburn at different points, I try not to eat after dinner. I just know that I feel so much better if I'm not in the current process of digesting. I'm more likely to have some acid reflux or just feel that fullness and have that disrupt my sleep.
Yeah. So I have a couple of thoughts and questions, because I was just kind of thinking well, I have so many actually. So, but one of the things that a lot of my clients talk about is, especially if they got the call in the middle of the night about their loved one's death, that startled response, that phone call in the middle of the night, and then they wake up every night at that same time. Any suggestions?
Oh man, that sounds really hard. And I I can appreciate the experience of our brains kind of trying to replay those things over and over. I think if I were to wake up in that way, I would want to start with just honoring where I am in that moment, a little bit of acceptance and kindness for myself. I think we can really beat ourselves up, and it's such an interesting process going through grief. It's not linear. Um, one experience of grief does not look the same for the same person, let alone for other people. And I think it's that moment to give themselves a little bit of grace and accept, yep, I'm awake. Here I am. It's 3 a.m. This is when I got the call, and I'm feeling this again. and it's showing up for healing.
Uh.
And so taking a moment to just accept, to breathe, and to say it's okay. It's kind of a different perspective, but I've talked to a lot of women going through menopause and perimenopause, and our sleep gets very disrupted during that time. And for many women, they're waking up in the middle of the night. And for a long time, I went through experience of being angry and frustrated at myself for being awake. And then I was like, you know what? I don't think that's going to help me. It doesn't make me feel more sleepy. So it's more like telling myself, yes, I am awake and it's okay. And if all I do right now is rest and breathe and take care of my body, that's all I have to do. And take the pressure off of forcing myself to fall asleep, because we can't. Unless we have somebody there who's trained in hypnosis who can get us there, which I'm sure there are people who have that if they're married or with somebody who can do that. Oh, okay. So I'm talking to Kelly here. Kelly is going to have the benefit of a hypnotist who will sit there and take them through. But, I think there's nothing wrong with giving yourself permission to rest and to be open to falling asleep, but to not feel pressured to fall asleep, and to circle back through some of those progressive relaxation, breathing techniques, counting, but to just be kind to yourself. I think we're so hard on ourselves. I'm sure you two know much more than I do, but at least in my experience, a lot of people are like, "Are you still grieving? Like, is that still something happening for you? Because hasn't it been enough time? Like, there isn't a timeline." Correct
Right.
me if I'm wrong, but
No, we say that all the time.
No,
I say that
no.
all the time.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think, reminding people to that rest is important as well, right? And so what happens a lot of times, a lot of my clients will pick up the phone and they'll start scrolling through the memories and the pictures, and they get caught in that loop of like this is their active grieving time, which is not helping their sleep at all.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so if their phone is also in another room or at least a little further away, it makes it a little difficult to do that.
Yeah. And I like to say you can certainly plug it in across the room, especially if you've gone through an experience where it doesn't feel safe to not have your phone nearby. But you can have it in your room. For me, in the hallway, we have our bathroom, so I just plug it in the bathroom. So if somebody needed to reach me, it would ring and I would hear it. But that does help us from making those choices. If you really can't fall back to sleep, I mean, like you're awake and alert, sometimes it's better to get out of bed, go do something else that's calming and soothing, and try to return to bed and try again. So I would say if you don't fall asleep within about a half hour or so, just get out of bed, rather than torturing yourself, especially if you find that you're spiraling.
Yeah. Yeah, it almost gives an opportunity for like your sheets to cool off again, and you can like refluff your pillows. And sometimes you do need to kind of get up and move. So, well, this is great, Kelly. I mean, honestly, these are the kinds of things that people are definitely struggling with. And, a tough night makes for a really tough day. And we need as much energy as we can. It comes in very limited quantities, and we require so much of it as a grieving person. So anything that we can do is just so, so important. So this has been really, really helpful for sure.
Can I ask one last question though before we go on?
Yes.
What about naps?
Yeah, they're
Naps.
beautiful. We love naps. I think just like you were just saying, the importance of rest, I think there are times when your body knows better than you do that you need a little bit more than just to sit down and rest your body.
Yeah.
You need that nap. And I think it's okay to get some sleep from naps. Naps can be productive, you know. There's all kinds of science around how long or short they should be. I would say not as much the length, but the closeness to bedtime. You maybe don't want to take a nap at 7 p.m., but maybe 4 p.m. or 5 p.m., a nice 20 to 30-minute nap could totally refresh you. My dad swears by that. So did my grandfather. It's like a family tradition. I don't have the blessing of the kind of life and schedule to do that all the time. But yeah, just laying down and closing your eyes and allowing your body to rest, I think can be really therapeutic.
That's great.
Before we jump back into the episode, we want to share something that's really close to both of us. The Grief Experience, Tools for Acceptance, Resilience, and Connection, is not only a powerful book, it's actually how we met.
We were two of the 25 authors who came together to write this collection. Each chapter offers a personal story about grief, different relationships, different circumstances, different ways people try to make sense of life after someone they love died. Readers tell us these stories feel honest, compelling, and surprisingly reassuring. Many say it helped them feel less alone in what they're carrying.
What makes this book unique is that it doesn't stop at the story. Each chapter ends with a practical tool, something the reader can use right away. One reviewer said the suggestions at the end of the chapter became a lifeline when they weren't sure what to do next. If you're looking for grounded support, or you're a therapist wanting to understand better the reality of grief from many angles, this book offers connection, clarity, and real guidance, not cliches.
You can find The Grief Experience on Amazon, and we'd love to get your feedback.
Well, these are all amazing techniques and ideas, and thank you for sharing them. I think they're going to be very beneficial. So we're going to switch gears for a minute. You've mentioned that your mom has died, and so we're moving into our celebrating their life segment. And just curious about how do you honor your mom and the life and the relationship you had with her?
I think it's an everyday process. She was super dynamic, very motivated. She came out of college. I live in New Jersey. She was in New Jersey. And her first job, she worked at Mawa High School. And they were developing a preschool program. And she went up into the mountains. There's a group of people that are indigenous to the area, very impoverished, very similar to like the Appalachian lifestyle. She went up to those villages, met those people, got them to trust her and enroll their children in preschool and a brand new program in Mawa High School. So I think about that, and I think about where she started her career and moved into working with Head Start and Even Start and at Morris County Votech. And she always believed in other people's potentials and opportunity for everyone to learn, to be fed. So I think anytime I do any work that's helping people to access their potential, to see how special they are, and to for sure give opportunities to people who wouldn't necessarily have them in life, I think I'm honoring her memory, and certainly being a mom to my 11-year-old son, and being able to nurture him through life the way that she nurtured me and always believed in my abilities. I used to send her, we were talking about the books that we did, I used to send her my chapters. And she always had something beautiful to say. She was a very good writer of notes. This was like one of her big skills. So I also take that from her. But she would write me little notes about how wonderful the writing was. So I think anytime I can pass that kind of energy on to others, I'm honoring her memory.
I love that. Thank you, Kelly, for sharing that. That's beautiful.
That's great. And really, it reminds me how we talk about a great way to honor someone is to take on their best qualities. The things that they taught us, the things that we admire about them, and try to continue that legacy in our work or in our interpersonal interactions. And she sounds pretty neat. That's really inspiring. So thank you for sharing that. So, Kelly, we usually like to leave everybody with like an action step for the week as they're listening to the podcast and we're talking about these sleep challenges and tonight they're going to go to bed and try to do something maybe a little bit different. So what would be maybe that one takeaway that you'd want someone to try tonight?
I think try to give yourself a delicious bedtime ritual. Get into your senses, a cup of tea, a candle, or some essential oils, a comfy blanket, a nice little space where you can sit, not necessarily in your bed, but just brain dump on a piece of paper, everything on your mind. It could be the list of what you want to do tomorrow. It could be a poem. It could be whatever free thinking comes out of your mind. And just let yourself have that for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 if you feel like you can gift yourself that. And then just see what happens. Run the experiment of when I do this, what does it look like for me to fall asleep, to stay asleep? What does my morning feel like? And really track that for yourself. Be a scientist about your own experiment with sleep. And don't be afraid to tweak different things in order to really give yourself the experience that works for you and get the best sleep for yourself.
That's great. That's great. I think it sounds like what you're saying is that all of this in terms of going to sleep, I think a lot of times we think I walk into the bedroom, maybe I'm washing my face or whatever, and then I'm just flopping into bed. But our bedtime routine is starting way before, maybe even much earlier in the day, the decisions we make about what we're eating, drinking. I liked what you said about ingesting. We ingest food, but we also ingest news and the things that we're watching. Will have an impact. And especially when things can be so triggering for grieving people and they don't know, what they could possibly come across. So it's also really helpful for people to understand that. So Kelly and I said we could talk about this all day. I mean, this is just a big, big, big topic for people. But if people wanted to get in touch with you, Kelly, what would be the best way for them to do that?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Just under Kelly Myerson. I have a Substack called Mystic Nerd Musings. So you can find me there. And as you mentioned, for the past 4 or 5 years, I've been doing the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast. It's actually changing its name to the Bridges and Beacons podcast, very focused on holistic and heart-led leadership. So those are the best places to find me. And I hope people feel a little bit inspired to improve their sleep in even just the tiniest way.
Oh, that's great. I think they will be. That's for sure. So Kelly, thank you so much for being here today. And to our other Kelly, thank you for everything. And
Thank you,
thanks to
Kelly.
everybody for listening. Very helpful information, Kelly. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for joining us on The Grief Ladies. Don't wait to feel better to get started. Getting started is what makes you feel better. Put this week's tool to work. If today's episode helped, share it with someone who needs it and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, we're here for you, your trusted grief ladies, navigating this path together.